All right, guys, welcome to another lecture. This time we're focusing on the index card game and specifically how to quote, paraphrase, and summarize. The index card game is something I often introduce to my students as a way to organize their paper and a great alternative to the outline. We're going to start, as always, with a screen share. So the first part of this index card game is the setup. And in order to do that, you have to have sources, and you have to know how to use those sources to either quote, summarize, or paraphrase what it is you would like to incorporate into your paper. And then we'll look at how to set up the index cards themselves, and then how you can use these index cards. So, collecting your data. Before you can write your paper, before you can organize anything, you have to collect your data. I'm hoping by this point you already have a thesis statement that you've at least got a rough draft of, just so you have an idea of where you're going with your research. So the first step is the quote. A quote is exact word for word from the text, and it needs to be in quotation marks. I also try to tell my students, you don't want to overuse quotes. You want to use just the prime, the beautiful, the one item you can't reword because it's just too perfect. Because if you use too many quotes, then you end up like one of my students I had a few terms ago who got a 74% on their similarity score when they turned in their paper. They had synthesized their information, they had put it all together very well, but where are they? 74%, and it was all quotes, synthesized quotes that had just been kind of thrown together, and it did flow. But remember, when it comes to your writing, and it doesn't matter what genre of writing you're writing in, you're the star. Why on earth would you take away from your ideas by turning in all these ideas of somebody else? So keep that in mind when you have quotes. Try to find just the ones that are so good you can't do without them. Everything else you can paraphrase or summarize. Anyway, quotes. This is an example of a quote. I have my original, and I have exactly how it should look in MLA format with the in-text citation. And this is exactly how it comes out of the book, with my in-text citation following it, and then we have last word, quotation mark, in-text citation, close the parenthesis, period. Note where that period goes. Now, what if it's a really good quote, but there's a segment of it that you want to have taken out? Maybe it is good, but you don't need part of it. Well, you have to signal to your reader that you are changing the quote and that it's not exactly as it came out of that book or article or blog or wherever it is you're taking your source from. So for that, you're going to put in an ellipses. The added mystery of consciousness, ... It took something out. And I just showed my reader that I took something out. And so that's how you would be able to keep the quote, but take out maybe something that's a little bit extra that you already have somewhere else in that same paragraph, and you don't want to seem redundant. Brackets are the other item that you use to signal to your reader that you've changed something. This time it's adding something in. Well, I've got this great quote, but if I don't put a little something in, maybe I change a pronoun to the name of the person it's referring to so that they have context. If I don't put in those brackets, they won't know that I changed that. And if they go to the original source, they'll think I was lying because I have it in quotes. Well, we have to show our reader that we are being honest, because our readers want honest authors. So here I have an example for you with the brackets. The added mystery of consciousness is that I'm adding a little more explanation. This consciousness somehow impacts the brain. And so these are the two modalities that you use if you have to change something within the quote. Note, in-text citation, in-text citation, in-text citation. If you are not tired of hearing that by now, then I have not done my job. Up next, we have the paraphrase. So the paraphrase is when you take a sentence or idea from your source and you're going to put it into your own words. In order to do this, you have to have a completely new sentence structure, or it is still considered a form of plagiarism. We call it mosaic plagiarism. So let's take a look at how you can do this, and then I'll give you a tip that you can use to ensure that you definitely get a different sentence structure. So paraphrase. Here's our original. A warrior of the light dances with his companions, but does not place the responsibility for his actions on anyone else. And oops, I missed my end quotation. If I were the professor grading this, I would have to knock off a little bit because it should really be a quotation right after else. And then you have your in-text citation, period. Well, a paraphrase for this is a true warrior of the light takes the full responsibility for his own actions rather than making excuses that point fingers at his companions. Same idea, but I put it in my words, so it's my voice. And while it's still the idea of this author, and I do give credit to this author, it does allow me to have my own little flair and voice come through. And it ensures that my similarity score goes down because I used one less quote. Okay, great. Now that tip I was telling you about how you can find a way to paraphrase without using the exact same sentence structure, the one I like to use the most is to read that segment that I want to paraphrase. That one sentence, I'll read it 2 or 3 times, maybe up to 5 or 6, and then close the book, kind of mull it over in my head, think about it for a while. And then after I have that kind of set, I can go ahead and I can paraphrase. Because I'm not looking at the exact same sentence structure, and because I've been thinking about this and mulling it over in my head, it's going to come out with the same idea, but it will be in my writing voice. And that is really the best way to paraphrase. Your next one is the summary. So a summary is taking a chunk of text and pulling out just the most important parts or ideas. I had a student, one of my first terms teaching college, who said, "Oh, you mean Cuban coffee?" And I said, "Wait a minute, what's Cuban coffee?" And he explained to me that Cuban coffee is when you take coffee, and you know, coffee, you usually have a nice big mug of coffee. Mine is empty. That's sad. That's okay. You take that big amount of coffee and you're going to take out all the excess and you're going to siphon it down to this little itty bitty amount. It's only about this big. It's very small. It would fit in the palm of your hand. And that little itty bitty amount will have you buzzing for what he told me was about 12 hours because it's so condensed with what you would get from a cup of coffee. So I thought that was a pretty good explanation. And by the way, he also said that his 5-year-old daughter made the best Cuban coffee. And I was rather impressed with that. And he said that hers had him buzzing with the caffeine from that Cuban coffee for about 18 hours. I thought that was pretty impressive. So what does this look like? Well, it's where you have a larger piece of text. So I've got my original here. And again, quotation marks, because that's an exact quote, and my in-text citation. And what I did was I read that over and I said, well, I really don't need all of that. I just need a couple of the ideas. So I was able to condense it down and go from, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines of text to 3. That's quite a bit. And that's exactly what a summary should do, is it should take a large chunk of text and you really like the ideas that are present, but there's so much extra that you decide you just need the most important parts. And again, you can read that over and over in your head, and you can go ahead and you can pull just those most important parts after you've set it aside and mulled it over. Or some students really like going through with a highlighter, and I have my fun multicolored highlighter here. They like going through with a highlighter and they'll highlight what they think is important. So they've got a visual that they can then pull from. And that's perfectly fine too. Make sure you're using the method that works best for you. So great, what do we do with all this now that we know how to quote, paraphrase, and summarize? Well, you're going to get some index cards. And on each index card, you're going to put pieces of information that align with your thesis. This is why the thesis is so important. You can't really research if you don't know what you're writing about. On each index card, you will put the book, article, or title, and the author's last name across the top. I like to put the author last name first and then the title. And then on the top line at the other end, you'll put the page number that you found this piece of information on. In the big area of lined parts for your index card, you will put down your quote, your paraphrase, or your summarize pieces of information. One piece of information per card, please. And then in the very bottom corner, you should put a Q, a P, or an S so you signal to yourself whether you have quoted, paraphrased, or summarized. Well, great. What do we do now? Use your thesis statement to guide your research. Use your research to pull the specific details that you want to use for your paper. And then put each specific detail on its own individual index card. Why this way? Well, after you've done all this, you can move on to part 2. And here we are with part 2. I'm going to tell you how you can use the index card game to your advantage and as a replacement for your outline, or as a way to prepare for your outline if your instructor is telling you you have to have one. So what do you need? Well, you need a perfected thesis statement written out on an index card or a piece of paper. You will need anywhere, depending on how long your paper is, from 10 to 30 index cards. Again, it's going to depend on how long of a paper you're writing. If you're writing a shorter paper, you're going to go toward the shorter end. If you're writing a medium length paper, you're going to go somewhere in the middle. If you're writing a long paper, definitely go with that 30 end. And you're going to need a partner. Next, as you have all these items, what you're going to do is you're going to play with your index cards. So I actually happen to have index cards here in my briefcase. I'm gonna just pull a few of these out so that I can show you how this works. So, index card with your thesis, you're gonna want that somewhere up here just so that you've got it as a visual. And then you've got all these index cards of information. So looking at your thesis statement, I'm going to decide. You've got that blueprint of reasons. I think this one fits really great with item number 3 in my blueprint of reasons. Well, I don't know about this one. I think I'm going to have to make a question stack because I'm not quite sure if it fits or not. This is great for the first one. That'll work for my second one. That'll work for my first one. Where's the rest of my index cards here? So you're just going to sort through them all And you're going to see how big a stack you have for each one. So now looking, this is a shorter paper. So I have 3 cards for my first subtopic. Oops, I have 1 card for my middle one. I think I may have an issue and I might need to do some more research on my second blueprint of reasons because I didn't quite find enough. There's really no balance, 3 to 1. And I've got, looks like 4 cards for my last one. That's pretty equal to the first one, so I don't think I need to do too much more research on either of those two, but I'm definitely going to have to beef up that second point a little bit with some more research. Next, you can look immediately at the top corners and you can see how many cards did you have from the same source. All 3 of these came from the exact same author, exact same source. If I put this in a research paper as is, I'm going to seem biased. I might have to do a little bit more research on my first subtopic after all. This one, pretty even. I've actually got 4 cards and I've got 3 different authors. This is a great blend. I think I'm good. Now, another way to use these. Yes, there are multiple ways to use these and they're fabulous. Let's splay them the other way. And let's take a look at that bottom corner with that Q, P, or S. Quote, paraphrase, summarize. I have 2 quotes and a summary. I am 2 quote heavy. I should really only have 1 quote. So I'm going to have to decide between these 2 quotes, and I'm going to have to pick which one is my favorite and use that as the quote for this one. Paraphrase, awesome, except I only have 1, so I may still need more research on that subtopic. Oops. And here I have 3 paraphrases and 1 quote. I'm good. This is a good balance. All right, last way to use this. And this is where you really get to test out how you want to structure your paper. Now look at these, look at your thesis, decide what order do you want these in? What's going to make for the most powerful paper for your topic? Well, I'm going to here, here, and here. And yes, this is my order. Hey, I just created an outline for my first subtopic. All I have to do is add in transitions and explanation, and I've got like 2 to 3 body paragraphs right here from this alone. Isn't that nice? That's probably going to be about a page right there. I still need to do more research on this one. Or right here. Well, you know what? 2 of these are similar. So I think I can put 2 of these together into 1 paragraph. And then these 2, I'm going to put 1 above and 1 below. And that's going to be the structure I want to use. So I now have my outline for my last body paragraph. Except it's going to be probably 3 paragraphs worth, because I still have to add in explanation, elaboration, and if this is an argumentative paper, counterclaims. So that'll probably get me about 2 pages right there. Oh wait, what about this one? I had that mystery card. You know, looking at this and reading it, it's really good background information. I think I want to put it with my thesis in the introduction. And that is how you use the index card game. Well, great. But what about that part where you said I need a partner? So glad you asked. I'm going to take all of these, shuffle them up. I know you just got them perfect. Shuffle them up. Take that thesis statement, hand it off to your partner. trade stacks with them, and let them see what order they would put it in. Huh. I wonder what they come up with. That being said, after you've done that, you're going to ask yourself, how solid is your thesis? Was your partner able to put them in the same stacks? Did they come up with something different? Having done this on your own, did you have enough information to support each subtopic? If not, you might need to go back and take a look. See where you need to fill in. What information do you still need? Go back to your thesis, to that blueprint of reasons. Research that one missing item. Did you have to rework your thesis statement altogether? I have had students who have done this, and by the time they get to the index card game, they realize they were researching something completely different. And rather than change their research, they changed their thesis. And that happens. It's okay. It's part of the process. So, how do we use this now? Well, this is a structure you can use to be able to create those body paragraphs. So for each paragraph, you would list your reason that supports your thesis statement, because everything ties back to that thesis. You would give your relevant evidence, your data, your statistics, your fact, that one little juicy piece of information that supports what it is you're saying, and then explanation on how this evidence or data supports your reason, or why it's important to your thesis. And then you repeat that as needed for each card. Again, sometimes you can mix the cards and have two of them together. But remember, you're the star. You are the star on the stage. So try not to overquote. Try not to have so many pieces of data from so many different authors that your voice gets lost. Make sure you're part of that conversation so that you're synthesizing your information with your ideas. All right, guys, any comments, questions, or concerns, do let me know. And I hope that you have found this helpful. Catch you on the flip side.